Yeah.
They have an Apple TV on every classroom.
Every classroom, yes. So it has all kinds of opportunities that you can use it for. It can be used for, it can obviously be used for internet access and things of that nature as well if we wanted to. Our wireless is all filtered, so it's all safe. So you don't have to worry about that. When our 5th graders do bring devices to school and eventually our other grade levels, they will not be allowed to be on 3G or 4G because that is not a filtered network. They have to be on our guest network. So that is another thing. So when parents ask about, well, they're going to have access to this and they're going to have access to that, if a child makes a choice that they do something that they know they're not allowed to do, they will lose access. The first time it happens, it's 2 weeks automatically, not even up for conversation. You know, we send a sheet home to all of our families that says, this is your expectations, and if you don't follow the expectations, this is the result. Yes?
I have 2 5th graders that have iPods but not iPads. So for the
Yeah,
spring
yeah, and that's a great. The question was, you know, they have iPod touches, not iPads. Again, the key thing to remember about any BYOT situation, it doesn't have to be Apple for one. We're not an Apple school, so though we have iPads here or Apple TV, we're not an Apple network. So any child that, I mean, when we say bring your own technology, if it's a social studies class, for example, in 5th grade, and Miss Lippard is doing a project and they're going to do some kind of collaborative activity. And she says, on this day, I want you guys to, you know, have your devices if you want to bring them in. And again, it's not mandatory because my job as a principal is to level the playing field. So if a parent doesn't feel comfortable sending a device in, they absolutely don't have to send a device in. My job is to fill the gaps. So I am never going to make any child feel like they're less because they don't have. In fact, the goal of the school is to give more access to kids. So that's the first thing I'll say. So if you don't feel comfortable, like my son used to bring his iPad 1 to school. He used it as a reading tool more than anything. It was his Kindle. But I didn't have any problem with it because of the environment. I knew he was responsible. He'd take care of it. Well, not everybody is my son, or not everybody feels as comfortable as I did with it. I don't want any parent to feel like they need to go out and buy a $600 device to send to school. That's crazy. So that's the first thing. We'll cover that. But the second thing, it's really for any tool that has internet access, except a Game Boy or one of those things, because they do have internet access, I guess. I didn't know that, but somebody just told me. So,
I just dated.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, whatever they're called, Nintendo DS, I don't know. But so basically, iPod Touch would work because they have wireless access. Kindle Fires work because they have wireless access. Any of those other Android devices that are out there that would have access, any of those tools that are out there that are much cheaper than Apple products would work in that situation. So it's not really about the device itself. So yes, that would work. And it does, and you know, and some of the touches do a lot of the, you know, even the iPhone, the new iPhone 4, well, not the new iPhone 4, but the iPhone 4 that's like 99 cents. They cost 99 cents now, not for the data package, but 99 cents for the phone. You know, that does everything an iPad does for the most part. So you can get the same apps, you can get, it'll do a lot of the same things that an iPad will do. It has the camera, it has video, and those are the tools that we're going to use. Because the goal of BYOT is creation. So what we want to try to get our teachers to start to do with kids is instead of always using paper and pencil tests to assess children, it is about getting kids to create products. So they work in groups to show their understanding. An example is we have some 3rd and 4th grade, actually 2nd and 3rd grade, are using an application called Erasma. And it's an opportunity where they can take a picture of an object and then they link it to a child. And, you know, for instance, it could be a math problem. So I could go, and if you ever go up to Patty Smith's room in 2nd grade, you can actually go to a bulletin board. If you have the app Erasma, you can run it over top of these spider math problems outside of her room, and it'll pull up a child talking about their math problem. Now, that is where you see, does a child really understand what they're doing? It's not just, you know, we grew up in an era where it was 6 times 7 is 42. How do you know that? I just do. You don't know the thought process behind it. Math has changed. So we are trying to get kids to talk more about math, to try to be able to explain. There's an application called Show Me. It's basically an interactive whiteboard on the iPad. And again, I'm using Apple as an example, but I'm sure there's all these devices have apps that can do this. But you write your problem on the whiteboard, and you can talk at the same time, and it will allow a child to explain as they solve a problem. So as a child is as low in kindergarten can say, well, 5 plus 3, they may not know how to write 5 plus 3 yet, they very well may, but they can use 5 manipulatives and say, 5 circles, and then add 3 circles, and they can talk while they're doing this equals 8. So now I know one-to-one correspondence, I know that they know basic addition, and that's with a kindergartner. So there are ways to use these tools all the way down the line. Now, this takes time. So we are beginning to expose teachers to this process. Some are gung-ho, others are going to be apprehensive, just like we are. So we have to kind of bear with people as the learning curve happens, but that's where we're trying to go with all these different things. It's about creation and preparing kids. So, we all grew up in the world of the Trifold project, or the poster board, the foam poster board things. There is not many businesses in America right now that are using foam poster board. They're using decks on PowerPoint, which is, I would say, basic, or you can use some bells and whistles and try to use a Prezi. Now, my wife doesn't like that. She's in business. She sticks with her PowerPoint. But a Prezi is basically a PowerPoint that has, it's on steroids. It soups it up. It kind of creates an image, so it has a graphic appeal to it to a kid. It moves around. It just has more to it. You can use Keynote, which you can start to implement more pictures in it. And, so there's a lot of different ways to get kids to show information now that is not how we did it. Now, it's about choice, though, too. So if a child chooses to do the poster board with their parents, I'm not going to take that away from them. But we'll create rubrics to kind of show, if we do it this way, this is going to be your score. You do it this way, this will be your score. And you're giving choice. It takes away some of this mystery of grades. You'll start to see more rubrics coming home explaining to kids what it takes to get this. Oh, okay, I know I need to include X, Y, Z, and A. If I don't have these things, I'll be here. So it's giving kids choice to kind of drive that train. When we grew up, you kind of did it, and it became very subjective. You think you did what the teacher asked you to do. You're not sure you did what the teacher asked you to do until you get your score. So you'll start to see that creeping in as well. So we're trying to create a paradigm shift, but that doesn't happen overnight. So, it's going to be a process. So that's I wanted to kind of share that technology vision with you. It's not really about apps at all. It can be used as a tool in the classroom, but it's not the way that I want teachers to inevitably, really end up in the long run. I've seen some teachers who already start to use some really, really cool things in the classroom that are kind of pushing the envelope. And then what I'm excited about the most is that they're then talking to peers and getting them on board. So you see this natural kind of progression, this almost like grassroots kind of thing happening where people are starting to see the impact. And that's when it really will catch. And that's when we're getting, versus me just kind of saying, you need to come to a mandatory training on technology on X day. We're making things voluntary right now. People have to be ready to go to that step. And if they're not ready, you can't push them, because there's research out there that says technology done bad actually can be a detriment in the classroom. So you want to try to make sure people are ready and you're exposing them as they're prepared for that. And some people will jump in and then they'll step back out. But at least I have people taking risks and trying. And that's the other thing I'm preaching pretty regularly right now. It's okay to make a mistake. Teaching is about making mistakes. That's the whole theory behind it. Anything great that was invented in this world, there's about 1 million mistakes before it was ever invented. So teaching our kids and teaching our teachers that you're not going to get your hand slapped every time you try something academically and it doesn't work. Go back and, try something new. Same thing with kids. Retry it. It's about getting mastery out of them. It's not about one and done. Questions about technology? Yeah.
Does that mean my 4th grader has to stop reading her nook?
No.
Okay.
No, you just won't see it. You just won't see it used for research and things like that. No, yeah, kid at any level can bring that tool.
Okay.
That's a book, just a fancy book.
Well, it's a tablet.
Yeah, that's all it is. If we see her playing, again, I think there's games on the Nook too. You know, if we see any child with a game on there, yeah, there's going to be a phone call.
But just because you're rolling out the fifth graders doesn't
No,
mean no one else.
that's going to be more the research piece of it. Yeah, I mean, having as a book is fine. Yeah, that's no problem at all. Any other questions about that? I'm going to show a lot more videos about it later on. There's some really cool stuff. We have some things on our website already to kind of explain BYOT. We have some examples, but I just wanted to kind of give you a feel of where we're heading with the process. We are asking the PTA for some support in regard to getting iMovie on all of our iPads. So they are looking at that right now. iMovie is a great tool. Again, it's an Apple tool that will be on our iPads, but it'll allow, it can actually make movie trailers look like, they look like true movies. But the cool thing for kids is after they read a book, instead of always having to write a book review, you can actually create a video book review. And, you know, some things, I mentioned Erasma, you know, some teachers are starting to use Erasma where they're going to have a wall with book titles listed on the wall after a child reads it, and it's going to have a clip, and then a kid can go over to the learning library and scan it, and it's going to have a child telling about why they like their book. So you're engaging with your literature. So it's a book review video. And then we've gotten some microphones because the iPad has horrible sound.
Which iPads do you have?
Twos. I think they're twos, aren't they? Yeah.
If you had just bought them now, they include iMovie and everything.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So we don't have them on ours.
You have one app store account for the whole school?
Yeah, we have to run it through the whole school. Yeah, so we can't. We have to do
They
it.
make you buy every single app
Bulk.
multiple times, or?
It's bulk. Yeah, it's all bulk because we have to make sure we're consistent, and we have a configurator, so we have to drop them all at the same time. But the neat part about it is there's so many things you can do with it. I mean, and again, when you talk about demonstrating understanding, you can use this as a tool in 3 to 4 minutes that you can show all kinds of things that are very, very neat. So that's something we're trying to get as
Do
well.
the teachers have PCs, or?
They have one PC in every classroom. So they have one computer just like that in every single classroom. I traded some things out. So to get the 10 iPads in every room, I took some, I think we had originally when this school was built, we were supposed to have 4 computers in every room. Now I have one for the teacher. I pushed those out, and then I got the iPads and Apple Television. It's kind of a trade-off because I thought it was going to give me more flexibility in the long run. I mean, you can still do almost everything you can do on that on here anyway. So that's why we did it. Yeah, good question.
And for the introduction of technology, obviously kids are going to bring Android, Windows, Surface, iOS. Do you have someone already on staff that at least knows the different technologies and can help?
We have several.
Or have at least a sample of each of those technologies?
Yeah, we have several people that, Miss Cloud, who's our computer teacher, I think I just turned the radio on. Miss Cloud knows some information. I don't have any idea. Who else? Miss Saraki also does. She's our math facilitator. We also have a tech, thank you. We also have a tech person that we work through, an instructional tech person for our school. So we have access through that as well. So if we can't fix it here, Miss Cloud does almost everything with our Apple products for sure. You know, we can go to other people in our district, you know, and we have support pieces, yeah. And then, you know, we actually have a couple parents that have, you know, already thrown their hat in the ring and said, hey, if you need anything, let us know. Somebody that's doing technology for Bank of America and a few other people that said they'd be more than willing to help us with that process. So we do have some supports in place. Yeah, great. Anything else that I can answer for you guys today? Anything at all?
You want to talk about EOGs?
Oh, EOG, thank you so much. I sent a letter home on Thursday about end of grade tests. So if you had a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader last year, those scores will be released soon. There are going to be press conferences starting tomorrow. I think the state is going to kind of start the ball rolling. The letter, if you didn't read it, was really to mainly make people aware that be prepared for the bottom to drop out on your scores for your children and not to have a heart attack due to that. Because, and this has happened multiple times over the last 10 years. You know, I think 3 or 4 years ago we did it with our math standards and everybody's scores plummeted because they changed the standards. And when they raise the bar and they change the standards, everything drops. It's going to be used as a baseline, so it has no impact on our children whatsoever. And the other thing I put in the letter that I sent on Thursday was that don't try to go back and compare it to your previous year because it's going to be apples and oranges, because the new test was given last year. That's going to be different than the test that they may have had in third grade. So it's not going to make any sense to you whatsoever. But when you start to see the data, you're going to see dips. Every state that's done this so far, Tennessee, New York City, there's another one I'm forgetting, but they've all seen massive drops, in some cases up to 30-point drops in regard to the scores. In the big picture, anytime you raise the bar, that's going to happen. So it doesn't mean your kids learned any less. That doesn't mean your teachers taught any less. That means the standard has increased. You know, the rigor levels have all increased, so the bar's gone up. And then the same thing that happened with math when they recalibrated a few years ago is that every year you're going to start to see them, you know, pick it back up again, so we're back up into the 80s and 90s again as a school. So when parents get that information, the main thing I wanted to share with people was, you know, don't think that, oh my gosh, my daughter or son dropped 45 points in math. You know, how did that happen? Because it's going to be inevitable in most cases that you're going to see massive drops in those scores. But they have no bearing on anything. It's going to be used as a baseline solely. So that's what I wanted to share about that. But that information will be coming, and there's going to be a letter that will come out from the school system, and then you'll also be getting your student report soon. We don't have them yet.
How does that affect placement for rising sixth graders?
Well, you still are taking, rising sixth graders will still end up taking the, what was that test called, Jen? That they took in math?
Maps?
No. There's another test that you take to go in when you go into sixth grade.
Yes.
I can't remember the name. But that will be used
Yeah.
again, I believe.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of
I
it.
can't think of the name of it, but
It's kind of
it's
like
another
maps.
form of a
Yeah,
test.
it's
a
like
placement
maps.
test.
It's similar to maps where children are given questions until they kind of test out of it.
Okay.
No. No, I can't remember what it's called, but that'll be happening again. And I don't think they'll use maps data. They could, I guess, but I think they'll probably end up using the exact same tool they used last year, because they had to use the tool last year too.
Does it start with an A?
I think it does, but I can't remember. But that's done here at the school. We take care of all that, and then they use that data in placement. So that will be the tool that they use. And it also, you know, if everybody drops.
AccuPlacer.
Yes, that's exactly what it's called. I like it. I like how you persevered through that. That's the other thing is, you know, because everybody is impacted by it, you know, you're also going to see, you know, some similarities. So they'll probably use it as a tool, but I'm assuming they're going to use AccuPlacer too. The other thing you'll see is they did figure out, and I'm not sure that it's kind of like a secret formula that the state came up with, but there is a way that they think they figured out growth, even though the tests were completely different. And what they did, the way it was explained to us yesterday, because I had a meeting yesterday afternoon, the way they explained it yesterday, which kind of makes sense, is they kind of looked at how kids performed on previous tests. If they've taken it, say, for instance, they took it in third grade, they took it in fourth grade, and then this was the first time they took the new test in fifth grade. They will take all the kids across the country that have taken, or across the state that have taken it, and they kind of align you, and they see, did you stay in your place in line kind of thing. So that means you basically made a year's worth of growth, or if you made more than a year's worth of growth, you may have moved up in regard to the rankings. So they have some kind of formula that they're trying to figure out, but that we don't get to ever see it. So I'm not sure much about it beyond that, but you will see a growth goal. And people are going to be like, well, how can it be growth if it's two different tests? And that's how they did it. They looked at previous tests. And then my question was, well, if I was only in third grade, I only had one test to judge by, how we do it. And they say they just look at other kids predictively, and it's a prediction more than anything. So I wouldn't put much stock in much this year and just focus on a baseline. So the main reason I sent it home after I got the information from the state last week was I wanted to try to relieve some anxiety. And then so when parents, I was trying to just kind of have a preemptive strike and let parents know, hey, this is coming. You know, I don't want you to lose sleep over it. And the other big thing is as you talk to your children about it, you know, kind of how to lay the foundation with them. That it doesn't mean that they're any less smart than they were before. It doesn't mean that they didn't learn anything last year. It's just a change in the way the rigor of the test is. And I think in the long run, it's going to be a good thing. You know, anytime that we can raise the bar, we need to raise the bar. But anytime you do it, it creates a little bit of a shock that first year. So you may see some data, though we haven't seen anything yet, you may see some data that just shocks you. Not necessarily your child, but like district-wide with some schools. Because if you drop, just as an example, say if you were a school that was in the 60th percentile proficiency as a school, which isn't that good anyway, but if you were, and we realign a test and you drop as a school 30 points, imagine having to share with your parents' population that only 25% of your students are on grade level. You know, that's where, you know, some schools unfortunately have to have conversations that, you know, it's really not their fault necessarily, but because of that situation, that number is what people see. And then they make all kinds of preconceived notions because of that. And then, you know, that's obviously what charter schools will use to come after, you know, so.
But we won't get these scores tomorrow.
No.
They're starting them.
Yeah, we don't have the information yet. But they should start, I believe, they're going to have a press conference. The state may be having a press conference tomorrow this year.
Now's probably a good time, though, to let parents know, because you would not believe the number of people who think that if their kids don't do well on these tests, they're going to fail.
Yeah.
They're going to be held back, and the parents need to know that.
Yeah,
That's-
and it's only one data point. The other thing, the only policy change that the state made was in third grade. And I sent all third grade parents this, I can't remember, last week too. It was a multi-page packet that the state policymakers came out with something called Read to Achieve. And there's an entire process in third grade if children are not on grade level in reading. There's a whole lineage of things that we have to do now in regard to, there's an option for, it's not called summer school, I think it's called summer camp, and they have to do that. And then there's some things as a school we have to do in regard to scheduling children and things like that. So in third grade, it has become more ironclad, but that could all change too if policy changes. But that's what it is right now. So I had to send home some information to our third grade parents last week, I think it was last week or the week before, that kind of outlined all that. And that's all available on the state website too. But that's the really big thing that's out there. We look at everything. You know, EOGs is just one thing that we look at. Yeah. Anything else I can answer for you that's going around before we clear out? Anything at all? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it very, very much.